When the systems we rely on start cracking, the immediate instinct is to panic. You look at the fracturing foundation, and the temptation is to grab whatever standard, off-the-shelf fix everyone else is using just to keep the roof from caving in. That exact panic response is the focal point of a case study found in the biblical text of 1 Samuel chapter 8. It outlines a scenario where a localized leadership structure was falling apart. At the time, ancient Israel operated on a highly unique system. They were guided directly by spiritual principles. When crises hit, localized leaders, known as judges, stepped up to handle things, but these roles were not inherited. There was no permanent royal bloodline. The crisis hits when the prophet Samuel grows old. He appoints his 2 sons as deputies, but they completely abandon the ethical baseline. They take bribes, chase personal wealth, and pervert justice. The system was rotting from the inside out. This creates a breaking point. When people see their foundational values being mismanaged, the fear of collapse pushes them to abandon those values entirely. They stop trying to repair the core structure and start looking for an industry-standard replacement. The local elders approach Samuel with their solution to the corruption. They demand a human king to rule over them, explicitly stating they want to be governed, quote, like all the other nations. They are trading in their unique spiritual framework for predictable, worldly security. Instead of waiting on divine timing to correct the corrupt leadership, they want the immediate safety of social conformity. The text shows Samuel taking this to God, and the response is revealing. God clarifies that the elders aren't rejecting Samuel's leadership. They are rejecting the direct governance of God himself. For the Israelites, choosing a standardized, secular model to fix a localized corruption issue meant abandoning the very thing that made them distinct. This choice created a high-stakes trade-off, trading unique spiritual agility for the rigid stability of a neighbor's system. It forces a brutal risk assessment. You have to ask yourself what the actual long-term cost is when you choose cultural conformity over the unique calling you were supposed to maintain. God tells Samuel not to block their request. Instead, he issues a specific instruction. Grant them their choice, but strictly warn them about the inevitable price of installing a king. Think of this as a return on investment evaluation. You are weighing the perceived safety of a worldly leadership structure against the absolute physical and emotional output it demands from you to function. To map this transition, we look at the balance of freedom versus obligation. Your starting position under spiritual autonomy is high freedom and low bureaucratic burden. But the moment you opt for a rigid, centralized human authority, that position shifts into a zone of high burden and low autonomy. You surrender direct control to a system that requires strict obedience. You are giving up unique divine protection to blend in. The safety of standard societal conformity is heavy. It anchors you to the exact same limitations everyone else is dealing with. If you adopt the world's standard, you inherit the world's baseline problems. You can absolutely have what everyone else has, but you are going to pay the exact same price they do. Samuel lays out exactly what that price tag looks like. He moves past the abstract theology and lists the concrete physical realities of installing a human king. Every secular system shares the same structural flaw. To sustain its own existence, it requires the continuous extraction of resources from the people it governs. When weighing these 2 options, the contrast becomes stark. You have the lightness of divine guidance on one side and the dense material weight of worldly leadership on the other. The warnings in the scripture are highly specific. A king will demand heavy taxation, he will initiate forced labor for his fields, and he will draft your children into his military. It is a systemic drain on personal property and individual liberty. The bureaucracy feeds itself first, and the light of that original freedom dims as the demands of the state multiply. The Israelites wanted a strong, united front to protect them from external threats. What they were actually signing up for was internal subjugation to human flaws, ambition, and greed. By replacing the flexibility of divine guidance with a human bureaucracy, the people invited in a system built on extraction. They traded the possibility of grace for a machine designed to prioritize its own survival over their personal autonomy. We reach the climax of chapter 8. The Israelites hear this complete list of extractions and subjugations. They understand the severity of the warnings, yet they still look Samuel in the eye and insist on having a king. God's final response to Samuel is direct. He tells the prophet to listen to the people and give them exactly what they are asking for. This is the ultimate expression of human free will. Divine authority does not step in to forcibly constrain their choice, even when that choice is highly destructive. But there is a massive caveat attached to this freedom. Absolute autonomy in your decision-making carries absolute liability for the outcome. Once you lock in a secular path, the spiritual safety net drops. You are now the sole owner of that decision, meaning you must endure 100% of the negative consequences generated by your own desires. The ancient Israelites aren't alone in this. It is incredibly easy to look at the friction in your own life or business and try to optimize it away using secular strategies. People fall into this trap in two ways. First, the pragmatic optimizer. Making structural decisions based on panic sets you up for long-term crushing weight. Second, the values-driven leader, compromising spiritual anchors to hit industry standards. Refusing that crown is difficult when everyone wears one. The tragic irony of Israel's choice is glaring. In their rush to escape the temporary, localized corruption of Samuel's sons, they locked themselves into the permanent, multi-generational oppression of a monarchy. Sovereignty in our own decision-making comes down to the framework we allow to dictate our choices. We are always accountable to some standard. The challenge is identifying which one actually aligns with our long-term goals. Divine guidance hands you the pen to write your own story, but it does not allow you to edit the consequences once the ink dries. If you attempt to replace principled living with human pragmatism, be prepared. You will ultimately get exactly what you ask for, down to the final exhausting detail. There is an unavoidable tax on your personal peace and spiritual freedom that comes with a life optimized strictly for worldly acceptance. It will always extract more than it provides. The most consequential freedom is found in selecting an authority that preserves our agency, rather than one that eventually demands it back as payment.